So we have changed our area. We were over at the main workstation, but I've got more stuff I want you to look at. So we had to move over to a bigger area. To the book itself, to some other materials. We looked at, so far, aviation. What is it exactly? We looked at aircraft in terms of a few concepts, few ideas. We looked at altitude. We looked at aerodynamics. We checked out the AFM in relation to, is it an AFM or do we actually have access to a POH, how they are similar. ADF was next on the list. Our automatic direction finder, we talked a little bit about it. There are so many words that we could have on the list, and I can talk to you about them, but some of them, it is gonna do us the best to actually go into our reference material, to go into our books and look them up, right? And figure out which books are gonna be best. You guys know I'm gonna be using the books that are free, right? So my Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. First thing we're gonna look at, honestly, is the altimeter, because we defined what altitude was, right? Aircraft altitude is just our actual height above sea level at which we're flying. So my altitude has to be accurately measured. That's where our altimeter comes in. Altimeter was on our list, and we know, it's a device on the panel in the aircraft. It's actually very important. I have here on the table, and you can see it. I was going through just last weekend a box of stuff from my dad. I have all of his old stuff, and for some reason I wasn't aware that this was in there, right? And it's a super old altimeter. I think maybe it's from a Cub, but I'm not sure. But you can see incrementally hundreds of feet on the big red numbers. You see where it lists thousands of feet are around the outer circle, and then in the interior we've got our tens of thousands of feet. One needle, right? But an altimeter nonetheless for us to actually hold and take a look at. It has a serial number and stuff on the back. I'm gonna go online and look it up. I'm not really sure. It actually says what the manufacturing company is too. Knowing my dad, it's probably really old. And he liked to keep that kind of stuff. And so now it's mine, which is kind of cool. But so the altimeter, if you are training now, you know that your altimeter looks vastly different to that. If you're flying with the glass cockpit, it's going to look even more different. It's going to be just an actual electronic display. It will be visual only on your screen. It depends what kind of plane you're in. You could maybe be flying in something really old that still has something very similar to that little sample that I have. But so our altimeter, we go into the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. We can work on our English together by reading out loud. Always a super good strategy when you're working on your English. Hear yourself say the words. I'm going to read to you so you can hear me say the words. I really think it's a beneficial strategy. And it's always nice to give our own eyeballs a rest a little bit. I will try to do more reading from the book. I may make some videos that are just reading from the book. We'll see. It's always nice to have somebody read it to you. Not that it necessarily makes a good bedtime story, but it's good to hear it. Okay, and so I'm in the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. I'm in chapter 8, which is my flight instruments, page 8-3 actually. And so I'm just right where it says principle of operation. If you've got this book at home, you're reading along with me, or if you're going to get it later on, 8-3 is what I'm looking at. And so it tells us the pressure altimeter is an aneroid barometer that measures the pressure of the atmosphere at the level where the altimeter is located and presents an altitude indication in feet. Yeah, so it's checking pressure. The altimeter uses static pressure as its source of operation, my static port on the side of the aircraft, right? Air is denser at sea level than aloft as altitude increases. Yeah, for every 1,000 feet, we lose about an inch of pressure up to just about 10,000 feet. Pressure goes away. Pressure, density, and temperature all leave as we move away from the surface of the Earth. The three key factors, really. Eventually, we'll look at weather theory a little bit. I love looking at weather. And then it helps us pull these concepts together. But we do. We lose pressure, density, and temperature as we move away from the surface of the Earth. I always hit the camera. Sorry about that. But so, as the altitude increases, atmospheric pressure decreases. So then the book tells us this difference in pressure at various levels causes the altimeter to indicate changes in altitude. Absolutely. So the presentation of altitude varies considerably between different types of altimeters. Some have one pointer, while others have two or more. Only the multi-point type is discussed in this handbook. The dial of a typical altimeter is graduated with numerals arranged clockwise from 0 to 9. We still see that here as well. We've got 0 to 9 on this one also, right? 0 to 9. Movement of the aneroid element is transmitted through gears to the three hands that indicate altitude. Yeah, so it tells us in the book they give you figure 8-2, and you can see it a little bit, right? That's the picture of the altimeter. 8-2. And so it talks about the fact that you've got the long pointer, right? The long thin needle with the inverted triangle at the end indicates my tens of thousands of feet. The short chubby, the short wide needle indicates thousands of feet, and the long needle on the top indicates hundreds of feet. So my altimeter I'm going to move on to the ADF, which is also in my Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Chapter 16, as we move further back in the book. All right, when we get to, yeah, we've got, it's our navigation chapter, right? Because we're talking about the automatic direction finder, the equipment in the aircraft that we use to locate my NDB on the surface, my non-directional beacon. So I've picked just a very small portion in the book to look at. ADF is 16-29, so page 29. And we come down to the bottom of the page if you're reading along. And it tells us automatic direction finder by ADF. Many general aviation type aircraft are equipped with ADF radio receiving equipment. To navigate using the ADF, the pilot tunes the receiving equipment to a ground station known as a non-directional radio beacon, my NDB. So the NDB stations normally operate in a low or medium frequency band of 200 to 415 kilohertz. Frequencies are readily available on aeronautical charts or in the chart supplement US. So all radio beacons, except for the compass locators, transmit a continuous 3-letter identification in code, right? Morse code, except during voice transmissions. A compass locator, which is associated with an instrument landing system, transmits a 2-letter identification, right? And I have a couple examples of the compass locator, which is associated with the instrument landing system. I'll show those to you here in a second. But so the book goes on to say, standard broadcast stations can also be used in conjunction with ADF. Positive identification of all radio stations is extremely important, and this is particularly true when using standard broadcast stations for navigation.